Here tonight by several members of our committee, and we are providing support at Apollo Regan Hall. I am calling this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kmahi, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Our committee's town hall serves as an opportunity for Halifax Regional Municipality's business unit representatives to provide updates to the community on current accessibility initiatives in the municipality and to hear feedback and input from participants. The scope of this town hall is specific to municipal responsibilities. The staff will share updates on current projects, successes, and challenges faced by the municipality with respect to accessibility. Upon completion of these updates, the floor will be turned over to you, the public, to ask questions and provide feedback for our panelists on the topics they will present. Following this question and answer session, we will move to an open floor visiting session where attendees will be invited to share their thoughts on what future accessibility town halls will look like. This will inform the work of the committee in the year ahead. We are thrilled to have participants join this meeting here at Apollo Regan Hall, both virtually and on YouTube. Questions will be facilitated both from the floor here as well as on Zoom. Providing your thoughts in these sessions virtually requires that attendees join the meeting through Zoom. If you haven't registered in advance, the registration link is still available both on the agenda page for tonight's meeting and at halifax.ca/accessibility town hall. Feedback and questions from tonight's session will comprise a report to the Executive Standing Committee. Your feedback will also help guide the work of this committee and the creation of the committee work plan for 2023. Our work is representative of the thoughts and concerns of you, the community. Accessibility is a priority for this town hall. We have sighted guides accessible at Apollo Regan Hall. If you require assistance throughout the room, once you have been seated, please raise your hand and a volunteer will come to assist you. Chart captioning services and ASL interpretations are included in the live stream. So we will now move on to the staff overview of accessibility successes and challenges portion of our meeting. Each staff member will provide an overview of the work within their business unit and be available to take questions from attendees after each presentation. Summaries of each presentation are available at the agenda page, on the agenda page for this event, and there are printed copies over at the Q&A table that is on your left. Our first speaker tonight is Melissa Myers. Melissa is the Accessibility Advisor for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, African Nova Scotian Affairs Integration Office. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's really nice to be here with you all. So I'm just going to give you a quick update on what our office is looking for. So last year we came to you to announce that we had last year's accessibility strategy last spring. From that, we've been created this accessibility task force. The committee is made up of business units who is working on implementing recommendations in the strategy. Our strategy was built around.
Sorry, just one moment. We're having an audio issue there. We're going to run a mic down for you.
So can you? Test, test. Sorry, folks. We love technology when it works. As I mentioned, let me reiterate this. In 2021, Regional Council passed the accessibility strategy. From that, we then created the Accessibility Task Force Committee. That committee is made up of members within the municipality working on the strategy. Our strategy was built around the following pillars. 1, public transportation and transportation infrastructure. 2, built environment. 3, goods and services. 4, information and communication. And 5, employment. Various business units, as I mentioned, are pulled together. Are pulled together. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
What song are you gonna sing?
No, I'm not gonna sing for you. Is that better? Can everyone hear me? Awesome. So we was various business units are pulled together to work on the action items. For example, under the public transportation and transportation infrastructure, a lot of work has been done by transit and other business units. Under the built environment, much work has been done by property, fleet, and environment and public works, which I will allow Dylan and Victoria to speak to. Under the goods and services, one of the most recent examples is the new inclusive playground at the George Dixon Center, which I will have Pat speak further on. Under communication, we've been doing a lot of work to develop accessible communication internally. For example, I developed multiple guidelines to help staff. So I've developed guidelines on best practices on creating accessible Word and PDF documents. I've also developed a guideline talking about the web accessibility guidelines in 2.1. And then under employment pillar, through engaging with HR, we are looking at practices that will support equitable employment and inclusivity in the workplace. Specifically, 4 of the 5 action items are due by the end of the year. And we are on track to complete this. Currently, we are engaging with 24 of the 30 action items. I would also like to share a few points with you about outcomes from the completed items in the accessibility strategy. So the first one is HRM hired a duty to accommodate specialists in the Human Resources Department, who will oversee the development of a workplace accommodation policy, as well as review of human resource accommodation practices. The next is we've been reviewing our website, so putting more information on the Halifax CA page about accommodation when it comes to employment. Under Halifax, Transit completed 2 major action items, which aim to increase and enhance accessibility within transportation. And I'll let them speak to that. Very exciting folks. Finally, I'd like to share some general highlights on HRM's progress on accessibility. Over the past year, HRM staff have been HRM staff have had more learning opportunities around accessibility through 2 main sources: a new corporate accessibility training, as well as accessibility related speaker sessions. Throughout the Office of Diversity, we continue to offer internal training, and that's entitled Going from Support to Inclusion Accessibility Training. This training is offered to staff throughout the year, and through COVID times, we offered it virtually, and now we're offering it in person. And for the speaker session, members of the disability community, including representatives from local organizations, educate HRM staff on specific topics related to accessibility and the disability community. Under my leadership, the municipality continues to identify ways to improve accessibility and inclusion, both internally and externally, as well as work with and in communities. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Melissa, for fighting through the technology and giving us that update. Our next speaker is Darren Young. Darren is the Manager of Infrastructure at Property, Fleet, and Environment. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. As Andrew said, so we're, for some of you remember from last year, we used to be called Corporate and Customer Services, so we've recently changed our name. So nothing new, but we got to change it up and make things fresh, right? So I'm going to cover off a couple of things around successes, challenges for 2022, and then talk about some activities for 2023. So just a quick overview. The capital project budget is where our focus is, and that is approved annually by regional council, typically in early April. And we kind of get our marching orders and we go from there. So facility design and construction is responsible to deliver and building related projects based on that capital budget. Typically run about 50 large projects a year and another 50 to 80 smaller projects, depending on what's going on in any one given year. We have multiple client stakeholders, including the Accessibility Advisory Committee, which I attend on the monthly basis. So some successes for our 2022, and I'll try to look up here. We just recently opened the Fort Needham Park washroom in July, and I think we've had a lot of success and accolades with that building. We've done some more beach mats this year, accessible beach mats. We did them in Campbell Point Beach. For those who don't know, that's around Brookside area of the city. Kiwanis Graham Grove Park is currently under construction, so that's a combination of a public washroom building, new space for the Kiwanis Club, and for dragon boats. So we've kind of combined some older buildings there. For those that have driven by the Commons anytime recently, we're well into construction of the new Commons pool, and that's going to have a lot of nice accessible features, not only at the pool itself, but for the change room facilities. Woodside Ferry Terminal actually grand opening yesterday, and we've done a lot of great things there, and we've got some great feedback so far on that one. Canada Game Center went under a universal change room upgrade this summer, and Dartmouth North Community Center, my notes say this month, but I believe we're actually into next month before we're going to be open. We're a little delayed there. We did some modernization of some elevators. The alternating landing is underway. We're adding features. They need to be updated, but we're going to take the opportunity to put in some features so that they do floor announcing and stuff like that. So great other opportunities. Something we've been running since 2012 is a door operator program. So when doors are identified that should have an operator, we've been doing them. We're probably in the 400 door range now, something like that. We've added 2 more staff members now are Rick Hansen certified. So that's a piece of work that helps us work in the community, in the consulting world, to make sure that we are getting properly built facilities. A new program I started last year, and we've done a few this year, is adult change tables. And we're trying to get them in more and more public facilities because I think it's a great asset that we've missed past. We're working with the Nova Scotia government and members of the technical committee on the Accessibility Act to develop those standards. And we're in the midst of getting ready to do some audits. We're working on a new wayfinding agreement to have standardized signage that'll actually be posted probably in the next couple of weeks on the provincial website. And that's going to have a focus on accessibility from a braille and tactile point of view. Some challenges, those are always the fun ones. Renovating existing buildings to meet CSA standards. There's physical limitations, especially if it's all brick and mortar. We have a very large building inventory, somewhere in the range of 250, 280 buildings that are used daily by the public. And so we need to get in there and do evaluations and determine how we're going to make those fully accessible for the community going forward. Actually, on that note, I'm pleased to announce that I hired an accessibility auditor on an interim basis for 18 months today. She accepted the position, so hopefully we'll get that program up and running here in the next couple of weeks. And that was kind of goes to my next one. We had capacity to deliver. We had some shortfall. We had a couple of retirements this year, and it's taken us a little bit of time to get some new PMs in place, project managers, which we just recently did, and just availability for lack of availability and delivery of components. So lead times on a lot of components have extended. The one I use, for example, because I do a lot of generators for the municipality, generators used to be in the 20 to 25 weeks. We're running somewhere between 50 and 60 weeks now to get a generator in a new construction. So additional activities for 2023. We are planning to hold a public consultation on the design of universal washrooms and change rooms. So we're hoping to get some feedback on the designs we've used to date, if they're working for people, if they're creating new challenges or barriers for certain segments of the population. So we're really looking for people's feedback on that. And that's my update for today. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Darren. Our next speaker is Victoria Horn. She is the Director of Parking and Public Works. Thank you, Victoria. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you this evening. Public Works is comprised of traffic management, parking services, solid waste resources, design and construction, project planning, active transportation, and infrastructure management and operations, as well as Cogswell. So that's a lot. I don't profess to know everything about all of those areas, but I'm hopeful that I can answer most of your questions and comments this evening with respect to those areas. We continue to operate with a focus on public safety and accessibility for residents, walking, rolling, driving, and accessing other municipal infrastructure. Today, I'm happy to provide an update on various initiatives happening across our business unit relative to accessibility and the accessibility strategy. In our Streets and Roads team, we continue to work on both designing and implementing the built environment on our streets, sidewalks, and pathways. We work hand in hand with our colleagues in development to ensure that developments and on-street encroachments are safe and maintain accessible pathways. That's been a significant chunk of our work this year. One of our bigger projects is Cogswell, another significant project, which continues to be monitored against Rick Hansen standards for the built environment. With winter around the corner, which I'm sure is on everyone's mind this evening, we continue to train all of our supervisors and contractors on accessibility awareness and clearing standards. In parking, we conducted an audit this year of existing accessible parking spaces against the newly approved standards that this committee approved, and we'll look to update those in priority sequence based on services adjacent in the coming years through our capital program. Public Works continues to work with the province to advance key safety legislation with the intent to introduce consistent lower speed limits, urban-sized signage, and camera enforcement. We continue to operate with a focus on public safety and accessibility for residents. In solid waste specifically, staff are offering virtual webinars, which increases access to information for residents. Staff are also working with Directions, which is a vocational services society that promotes inclusion of persons with disabilities and links them to employment opportunities. Finally, I'll just add that we continue to work with Melissa and colleagues in diversity and inclusion to ensure that we're aligned with provincial accessibility legislation, and we've started conducting audits on our infrastructure against that legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Our next speaker is Lindsay Mullen, Outreach and Engagement Specialist with Halifax Transit. Lindsay is joined tonight by Dave Nantel, Supervisor of Bus Operations for Accessibus. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Here, everyone hear me? Sit down.
No.
No? Can I use this one? This is better? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all today. My name is Lindsay Mullen, Outreach and Engagement Specialist for Halifax Transit. At Halifax Transit, our mission is to provide a safe, reliable, and sustainable transit system for all. This requires consistent attention to accessibility and a passionate commitment to continuous improvement in this area. Tonight, I am excited to be here to speak on some of the initiatives Halifax Transit has been focusing on to improve accessibility and customer experience. I'll begin with infrastructure and bus stops. So last year, Halifax Transit worked with an external consultant to conduct a formal assessment of all bus stops that didn't meet the current standard accessible low-floor bus stop requirements within the municipality, and to provide improvement recommendations for each individual stop. A standard ALF bus stop is where the bus ramp can be deployed and the bus stop has a concrete landing pad with access to a sidewalk. Based on the consultant's findings, a multi-year work plan was developed to guide bus stop upgrades with the goal of all bus stops throughout the entire Halifax Transit network to be fully accessible by 2030. The first phase of the project involves upgrading more than 700 bus stops across the municipality to meet the goals set by the Halifax Accessibility Strategy and the province's Access by Design. This year, we upgraded 50 bus stops, which touched almost every district within the municipality. This brings the total of fully accessible bus stops in the Halifax Transit network to approximately 69%. In collaboration with internal and provincial stakeholders, we have also been reviewing the CSA National Standard for Design for the built environment to develop a new accessible bus stop standard in Halifax for future bus stop design, development, and improvements. Another exciting advancement for accessibility this year is the completion of the Woodside Ferry Terminal recapitalization project. This 3-year renovation project has significantly improved accessibility, customer experience, and energy efficiency. We're super excited to share with you that the Woodside Ferry Terminal is also the first Halifax Transit facility to meet the municipality's new standard for universal access to municipal facilities. The terminal also meets the CSA standard for accessible design for the built environment, as well as the ISO standard for graphical symbols, public information for wayfinding and signage. The renovated ferry terminal is an accomplishment the whole community can be proud of, and we encourage you all to visit the new facility when you have a chance. Next up, public communication and education. At last year's Accessibility Town Hall, we heard from residents that conventional transit can be overwhelming or intimidating for those who have not tried it before, especially for those with accessibility requirements. We took this feedback to heart and are happy to share with you that in the past year, Halifax Transit has designed and launched a new travel training pilot program targeted to various audiences. This year, we piloted the first stream of the program, the Accessibility Travel Training Program, with Prescott Group, and are continuing to pilot the program in the coming weeks with New Leaf Enterprises, Regional Residential Services Society, Club Inclusion, CNIB, and other community partners serving individuals with disabilities and accessibility requirements. The process of piloting the program with these groups was truly a community-led effort. The accessibility travel training is currently available in a variety of options, including multi-day group sessions, single-day sessions, and one-on-one travel training. Each session is tailored to the organization or individual's needs. So sessions can include classroom instruction covering transit basics and trip planning, but as well as practical opportunities to ride transit in a simulated or real-time environment. Participants also visit transit terminals with Halifax Transit staff. The accessibility travel training has been very well received to date. In this past year, we facilitated 15 group accessibility travel training sessions and 2 individual ride-along sessions. In addition to this travel training, we also launched a training module for high school and post-secondary institutions and successfully facilitated 17 group sessions. It has been super exciting to help participants of the program feel more confident using conventional transit and hearing stories of how this has supported their independence, provided options when traveling through the municipality, and changed their lives for the better. To support the travel training program, we've also been developing customer mobility travel tools, which includes the bus hailer kit, passenger support cards, and mobility cards to support individuals with varying cognitive, visual, mobility, and other impairments and or difficulties. These tools will be piloted with community groups in the coming months. So based on that feedback from the pilot, the tools will be offered free of charge to passengers or community groups who request them. Accessibus. Accessibus has made substantial progress in the past year with the installation of mobile data terminals, or MDTs for short, on every vehicle as part of the Accessibus Continuous Improvement Plan. This new technology was installed in September and helps track where each Accessibus vehicle is in real time. This new technology provides us with valuable data and allows us to be more efficient and flexible with meeting our clients' travel needs. It provides our trip reservationists with a more realistic view of system performance and accommodates the potential for clients who may need to book a same-day trip. With this change, we'll be able to help more people at the same cost. The priority for Accessibus over the next year is to reduce the number of clients on the wait list each day and eventually to eliminate the wait list entirely. We are also reviewing the client application renewal timeframe at this time. Lastly, Extra Care Taxi. An important goal of the municipality is to support accessible communities and equitable transportation for all. In March 2022, Regional Council unanimously approved a staff recommendation to grant a 3-year contract to Extra Care Taxi to provide an accessible taxi service for passengers who are unable to use conventional taxis. The municipality's support of an accessible taxi service is based on feedback from residents, visitors, and service providers, as well as the municipality's accessibility strategy. Extra Care Taxi officially launched in July of this year, and the company provides accessible taxi service throughout the whole municipality in partnership with Halifax Regional Municipality. Passengers pay the standard taxi rate for their trips, and the municipality provides ongoing funding to Extra Care Taxi to help the high cost of offering the service. To date, Extra Care Taxi has 9 accessible vehicles available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week throughout the region. 1 additional vehicle will be added to the fleet in the coming months for a total of 10 vehicles. Since the launch from July to September, Extra Care Taxi fulfilled 962 trips, and in September there was an average of 19 passengers per day. Bookings can be made by phone, online, or through the Extra Care Taxi app. And since the launch, customers who are local residents as well as visitors have provided their positive feedback about the service, stating that the drivers and dispatchers were kind and knowledgeable that the app for bookings and payment was pretty easy to use, and how much they appreciated the different options available to book a trip. Overall, residents and visitors seem very grateful for this service. So on behalf of all my Halifax Transit colleagues, thank you for the opportunity to share these exciting initiatives to improve accessibility for Halifax Transit customers. We welcome any feedback and suggestions you have so we can work together to help support a safe, accessible, and inclusive transit experience for all. Thank you.
Thank you for Lindsay. Our next speaker is Pat McGrath, Manager of Aquatic and Inclusion Services for Parks and Recreation. Pat?
Hello, thank you. Hi, yes, yeah, my name is Pat McGrath. I work with Recreation Department and Programming. I had the fortunate luck of starting the week before COVID, so even though I've been here 2.5 years, I'm still learning my position. So in recreation, so this year we've been expanding our staffing and inclusion accessibility. We hired a third inclusion accessibility specialist who are going to allow us to, offer greater supports across our recreation centers. We also created an outdoor aquatic inclusion position this summer through a grant that allows us to, expand our programs at our beaches and our outdoor pools. And we also, this year, one of our biggest programs through the summer, we do a lot of support is through our summer camps. And so we introduced a specialized inclusion staff position that has a higher level of training so that we can provide greater support throughout the summer in our programs. We also adopted the Angel Fish training program for our aquatic centers, and this provides our staff, who are typically, teenagers, with more tools to support them in teaching children within swim lessons as well. We created trauma-sensitive workshops and program design workshops that we ran our recreational staff through this past year. And we also ran our staff through a training program developed by ISANS for newcomers in recreation. We continue to expand our equipment lending program with hippocamps, sledges, trikes, grit chairs, beach chairs. We have life jackets at all our beaches, and we now have specialized life jackets at all our indoor pools. Really exciting, this year we opened up our all-inclusive Jumpstart Playground at the George Dixon Center. There's one of these, if you have a chance to go see it, this is an amazing facility. We also, in a recapitalization of 8 different playgrounds, we added more accessible features as we start upgrading our older playgrounds. We have a new park plan for the Peace and Friendship Park for recognition and commemoration of Indigenous history. We also have seen a large expansion of our affordable access program. This was implemented just before COVID, and this year we've seen a 5-fold participation in this program, which provides financial access to programs and memberships at HRM recreation facilities. And we continue to provide free leadership training for youth within HRM to train as lifeguards and swim instructors to give them access to employment. And this year we brought back our free swimming programs at all our beaches, and we saw close to 1,500 kids go through these programs this summer. In terms of our programs themselves and some successes, with summer camps, as I mentioned, we've seen a great uptake. In the summer, we saw about 150 youth get one-on-one support work through the summer. And through the year, we've also been providing one-on-one support through our aquatic programs. And we brought back our Ready for Rec program, which is now being offered at Sackville and Captain Spry. And there's probably too many to mention, but we've had lots of successes at all the individual facilities who provide one-on-one support. And I just want to remind anyone, if you do need support services, you can contact your community recreation coordinator at your facility, or you can contact our inclusion team. And I don't know if I'll give you the email, but our inclusion team can be accessed at inclusion@halifax.ca, and they can assist you with finding programs or having access to our facilities. Probably one of the most important things we do, and that is partnerships. finding organizations that have the expertise that we may not have. And now that we've had 3 inclusion specialists, those partnerships have started to grow and expand. For example, we have our Easter Seals partnership where we offer Learn to Sledge and Learn to Wheel programs. The Lakeshore Curling Club has offered programs there. Learning Go provides programs for after school and through the summer at the Sackville Sports Stadium in Canadian Williams-Bry. They also assist us with our training for our summer staff as well. And as I mentioned at ISANS, they've started their multi-sport program this year at the St. Andrews Center. And in terms of going into 2023, we're having meetings almost on a weekly basis with organizations. So we're going to see a large intake with our partnerships. And the last thing I have is that we're just put the final touches on our deaf and hard of hearing report, which is going to be making recommendations for programs and services within recreation and HRM, and we're really excited about that. And in terms of challenges, I think this has already been mentioned before, but obviously we have aging recreation facilities that have access pieces. And the one thing that we really noticed is staffing shortages. With closures of facilities, a lot of our youth didn't take programs or get trained, so we're catching up on lifeguards and instructors and program instructors and that sort of stuff. So it's going to take a little while to get back to normal operation, I think. But anyways, thank you.
And thank you, Pat, for your report. That concludes the staff overview portion of our meeting, so we will move on to our feedback, input, questions, and comments. We will rotate our questions from one question here at the hall to one question submitted online. Questions submitted by virtual participants will be asked on your behalf by a committee member here at Paulo Regan. Participants who would like to answer a question here in the hall, there are 2 committee members who will be moving around the floor with microphones. Please signify that you'd like to ask a question by raising your hand, and a committee member will come to you. Please remain at your seat, and our mic runners will hold the microphone for you. Any participant who has a question that cannot be answered by staff tonight, or if you would like to be contacted by staff after this meeting, please leave your contact information at the Q&A table. If you are submitting your questions virtually and would like follow-up from staff, please note this in the Q&A function, and staff will send you an email early next week. So, the ground rules for this part of our meeting are as follows. 1 speaker at a time. Please provide your name and community or organization for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per turn so that all attendees will have an equal opportunity. If you're here at Paulo Regan Hall, please use the microphone so that you can be heard here and on the live stream. If you are not comfortable asking a question into the mic, please visit the Q&A table to submit your question in writing. We have committee members who are there waiting to assist you if you need it. Questions submitted virtually on Zoom will be asked on participants' behalf by a staff member here at Paulo Regan. Please respect all points of view as they are expressed. We're going to start with our first question from Paulo Regan Hall. And please state your name for the record. Yes.
Okay. Hello, folks. My name is Carrie Ann Bugden. Can everybody hear me okay? Those of you that don't know me, I recently came here from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm from Newfoundland. I'm a 32-year-old woman who goes to the Mount, and my pronouns are she, her. I have a question in terms of finding accessible, affordable housing here in HRM for myself. What many of you don't know is that I live by myself independently in my own apartment back home in St. John's for 11 years. The issue is, it was a private residence owned by a private landlord, and it was a private apartment, which means the legislation in Newfoundland Labrador means that landlords can do whatever they like. So I recently was informed that my apartment back home in St. John's is no longer wheelchair accessible. I have very big concerns about ending up in an institution. This is what I've been told, what I've heard that happens in Halifax. I'm wondering if anybody can give me any viewpoints about where I can get funding for board and lodging supplements or rental top-ups or anything to help me out. Thank you.
It's on my phone.
I actually set the precedence for the whole province of Newfoundland and Labrador when I did that, apparently. So
I'll try to answer the question.
I just want to make sure the members of our community don't end up institutionalized if they don't feel that they need to be.
Understood, and for sure, yeah. So you want to answer it first? That's what I was going to say, yeah. So unfortunately, in the province of Nova Scotia, that's a provincial mandate, and you're going to have to go to the office of the community housing. So HRM or Halifax Regional Municipality doesn't have authority on that district, on that subject. So I apologize.
That's okay. No. What people don't understand, it wasn't a part of any housing initiative. It was just a regular apartment. I paid rent like everybody else. So I didn't need any subsidization from the city.
Oh,
I was able to have what I wanted without having to go to,
yeah.
And as of right now, I've been told by my affiliates back home, it is in my professional interest or my personal interest not to return home, because people in my situation, 450 people in my situation are in shelters in St. John's right now.
Yeah, I don't think it falls under our planning bylaws, but are you thinking that possibly it?
It may fall under planning and development, so we can take your contact information. If I understand your concerns correctly, you're concerned about ensuring that landlords can't unilaterally make changes to.
What I'm trying to ensure is that if I live at the mountain right now. I wanted to ensure that once I'm ready to come out of the mount, like even before I graduate, I can just get sorry about using this language, but a regular apartment with everybody else, so I don't have to worry about staying at the mount if I didn't want to. I should have choice versus, That's a loaded question, I understand.
Yes,
So
perhaps we
as a
can-
municipal councillor, would you like me to give a shot at this?
Certainly, Council.
No, that's all right. So housing in Nova Scotia is a provincial mandate. So in terms of working with the support team that you might have at the Mount, about when you graduate and what that might look like, there's a beautiful accessibility team at Mount St. Vincent University. Yeah, they've got a great team. But the legislation belongs with the province, so where this is the municipality, right, but you know what, maybe afterwards, I'll take your name, we'll connect, and I'll get you connected with the right people in the province. How's that?
Yeah, because that was devastating to me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor, for that.
Are we on? Awesome. Just about,
May I interrupt, Paul? Our next question is, are you commenting on her statement? Okay, sorry.
I apologize. I'm like really PTSD out right now. And I'm completely weirded out by everybody, so I'm trying to try not to cry. About that, affordable housing is also the province's, right? My point about this, which I've had words with councillors, is they always talk about affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing, and they never include accessible housing. And I get it, it's under the building code provincially, but affordable housing is also at the province. But council, no offense, wants to look really progressive, and so they're like right on the affordable housing thing. But like every time something comes up, our community is left in the dust, in my opinion. And so, in my opinion, as a corporation, the council and staff need to use the word accessible when we use the word affordable. And I've talked to the mayor about this and the CIO, and they agree with me. My councillor lectures me that, oh no, it's a provincial thing with the building code, but so is affordable housing. But they want to act like, no offense, again, Jesus. They want to act like affordable housing, like they have some say over it. And meanwhile, affordable housing is getting built or planned. And like everything, including Spring Garden Road, which is completely messed up, disabled people weren't included in any of that planning. And so, okay, we have to sort of deal with the fallout of that every time. And I hope I get to make a 3-minute thing after this. I just wanted to like comment on that. Dude, it's cool. I got to start getting out again, so this is okay. It's like getting exposure therapy, but right now I'm freaked out. So anyway, just as a point, I think we need to be the thought leaders and use these words, because to change legislation doesn't change things. People changes things. And to change people's hearts and minds, you got to use the words that include everybody really. And I'm a flaming leftist, and we on the left have a real issue with including disabled people in the most marginalized of groups. In my, privileged white body, of course. My disabled body gets me nothing, but anyway, my opinion as a citizen. I'll shut up now. Sorry.
Thank you for your input, Paul. Our next question will come from a virtual attendee. Do we have anything from the Zoom and or YouTube?
Yes, we do. Remick? This is from Andrew. Apologize. Jansen?
Yep.
I'm a community member who uses the beaches often in summer, and I love the Moby pads. However, I've also noticed there are issues with many of them. For example, drop-offs that mean people can't get into the mat with their own wheelchair, or sand between the path and the mat that is impossible to transverse with wheels. What is being done to review the accessibility work at beaches and parks to fix issues like this so that we can make use of these wonderful improvements? Sorry, Darren.
I can start with answering that. So this year, actually, I've been working on a report for council, and this report is going to be looking at, how the change we can make to our beaches over the period of time to make them more accessible, and, the change we can make to make sure that everyone can access those. And that's going to be going to council probably in the spring. So there'll be a lot coming out of that and how we're going to move forward with making sure that our beaches are accessible to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the hall? Yes, sir.
Sorry. Okay. First, I'd like to ask about the new transit app that's up and coming. I use a voice reader with a screen curtain because I can have seizures from the screens. Will I be able to access the new app and take advantage of the lower price bus tickets that's to be offered through it? Has this been tested for screen reader users?
Hi, that's a really good question. I'm not totally certain myself on the answer to that. I imagine so, because this app is widely used across other transit jurisdictions, so we're not the first one to use it. I can definitely get back to you with the answer to that, though, to be certain. So I'll follow up. Thank you.
I know, I know at first it's not going to be like scannable by the bus drivers. They're to look at the phone. But my phone with the screen curtain is a blank screen. You can hear it, but you can't see it. So will that mean I'm ineligible?
That's a good question as well. I'll have to take that back. Thank you for your feedback.
Okay. Question from the floor, or
Yes.
virtual?
Yes, we have another one, Mr. Chair. It's from Danielle Tremblay. I wanted to raise that there is a desperate need for legal supports and tighter employment laws as a part of this accommodation discussion. I am sorry if you have already discussed this, but I was wondering if there is any concrete plans on how to make these supports available. This is contributing to a lot of difficulties.
Oh, yeah, I have my own too. So the question is about legal supports related to employability?
Tighter, yes.
So I think that is a question we'd have to take back to our Human Resources Division, so that's one we should note.
Yes.
We don't have anybody from Human Resources here at the moment, so I don't think we can comment on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, question from the hall. I believe I saw one. Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jim McDermott. So I just had one recommendation for improvements for accessibility related to members of the deaf community. I first wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight. I did want to speak to the bus services. I know that we have the captioning on the bus services, I believe were set up 2-3 years ago. I appreciate that. It has benefited the deaf community and also the hard of hearing community quite a lot. It's been fantastic. We're able to see what's happening, what the next stop is going to be, that sort of thing. So that's been great for the community. And also I want to speak a little bit about the Christmas tree lighting that we have every year. We generally have interpreters at the Christmas tree lighting, so all members of the community attend. They do typically book interpreters for that, so I just want to recognize that that access is being provided, and we thank you very much for that. To be able to attend every year the Christmas tree lighting and have that exposure for the deaf community and other members within the deaf community. The one comment that I did have, though, that is has been a little bit frustrating over the past, I would say 4 to 5 years, is with the government and also with the province and with the community, is safety with housing within our own personal homes and also in apartments and that sort of thing, with any sort of emergent devices. So if there's a fire in a building or in our homes, then having those sort of alerts there, having the visual alerts. So there may be members of the community that aren't able to hear when a fire alarm or some sort of emergent alarm sounds. And then therefore we need to have the flashing light. Those visual lights are important to have those alarms in apartments, in housings, in hallways of apartments. Often when you contact your landlord, then they tell you that it's too expensive. Well, it shouldn't be a problem of expense. People in the community need to be safe. People in the community are at risk when you don't have those sorts of alarms in place. So a lot of times you have deaf individuals in their apartments hoping that they don't die because a fire happens and they're the only ones in the building that didn't hear an alarm. And then they're left in the building to perish. So that is something that we're met with quite frequently, with contacting our landlords and our landlords saying it's not a mandate, it's not a rule, it's not covered under any sort of policy or procedure, therefore I don't have to do it because it's a cost to me and I don't want to, or we can't afford to, or whatever the case may be. So it is important to have those sort of features in housing, but there needs to be some sort of rules and implemented policies in order to force these landlords to do these things for us. So thank you very much. Hopefully that was clear for everybody.
I can speak to that one. Again, we're not trying to dwell on the province here, but in the National Building Code, which has been adopted by the province, my understanding is all new constructions are required to have the audio and visual alarms. I know we do it all in municipal buildings. You actually see the one here on the wall right above the exit door to the left here. And we mandate them in all our projects. I guess my question would be, is the building you're in older than 10 years? Then that may be why it's not there. And until they do a major renovation, then they're not required to meet the latest code. So that could be a problem. But I believe, and please do not quote me on this, the new accessibility standard that making Nova Scotia accessible by 2030 requires them to do that by that time. Part of the whole goal is to make the province fully accessible by 2030. And so my understanding is that is in that process or in that documentation, and that built environment standard is due to be released next spring, Melissa? Do you recall? Yeah, I believe it's the spring of 2023. And that should then tell the landlords what things they have to complete between now and 2030. At least that's how we've been communicated. We're working towards that on our existing buildings. And again, all new construction since probably 2014 has had the visual audio alarms in it for HRM.
Thank you, Darren. Jackie, do we have any more?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have a question from Bill Jordan, and this question is for Ms. Mullen. Are wheelchair aprons / ramps inventoried? There's a cursor in my way, sorry. Inventoried, monitored for their compliance with the HRM Red Book Accessibility Act Built Environment Safety Standards? If so, what happens when they fall below the standard and endanger wheelchair users? Are disabled wheelchair users evaluating?
Hello, it's Victoria speaking from Public Works. So if I understood the question correctly, I think Bill is asking about the landing at the transit stop as opposed to the apron being deployed from the bus and whether that's being monitored. Bill, if that's the case, we are in the process of working with transit to support retrofitting of those stop locations. So transit identifies the ones that need to be addressed, and then it's incorporated into the Public Works capital program. But transit, perhaps not those here present this evening, but transit would be able to speak to how the audit is completed and when that is done. If you're speaking about the infrastructure on the bus, that would be likely another question that we would need to take away.
It appears as if the question is about the ramp. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Question from the floor. Oh, sorry. I apologize.
Was there still an open question on the ramps on the bus? Those are standard. Those buses are produced at a standard that's been set for the different types of buses, and the ramps are standard fit for those buses.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Louis Greco. I work with the CNIB here in Halifax. Well, first of all, thank you for doing this. This takes a lot of guts to stand up in front of the community and take unscripted questions from the public at large, from a community that has many challenges. So kudos to the committee and kudos to administration and council for opening it up to the public. I don't want to pick on transit, but transit is something that's very important to me as a person who's blind. I understand that the city is in the middle of procuring electric buses. For people who are blind, while we are really excited about greenhouse gas emission reduction strategies and the green economy and all things sustainable, electric buses and electric vehicles pose a real safety risk for those of us who don't see. About a month ago, about 2 weeks ago, I was in Montreal at a conference of the Canadian Urban Transit Association. And to my dismay, not a single person there, including the people selling electric buses, and there was 5 companies there, not a single person was aware of the acoustic vehicle alerting system that Transport Canada will be mandating for all vehicles. The legislation hasn't come into force yet. I've been told by Transport Canada that it will be imminently. They say by the end of the year, which probably means next spring, the way Ottawa works. But I'm just wondering if Halifax Transit has that on their radar, and if so, will there be an opportunity for people from the community of persons with sight loss to actually experience what these electric buses sound like? What we don't want to see happen is somebody end up on the wrong end of the bus at the wrong time and then discover, well, the system needs to be, the alerting system needs to be enacted. My follow-up question is, with the plans for the Bedford high-speed terminal, I'm assuming that that's going to see some renovations to the existing ferry terminal downtown. And I would strongly suggest that if that ferry terminal does undergo renovations, that the city, either through transit or through infrastructure, look at a better wayfinding strategy to get from the ferry terminal to Lower Water Street. Every time I walk through that area, either going to the ferry terminal or leaving the ferry terminal, it's like I take a new adventure. It's never the same path because it's such a convoluted and twisty-turny journey that you have to get from the bus stop to the ferry terminal. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hi there, thank you for your feedback. And I can say to my knowledge that there will be, they are programming noises for the electric buses for the outside as well as inside. I think that's a great idea to have a bit of a test run before they hit the road for CNIB clients. I think that's a great idea, and I'll forward that onto as suggestions for my colleagues. For the Bedford Milco Fast Ferry renos, there will be renos for Halifax Ferry Terminal. I'm sure we'll be working with our colleagues in order to make sure that it's a accessible facility similar to Woodside. In terms of the journey from the ferry terminal to Lower Water Street, again, I'm sure we can work with our colleagues to make that better as well. Oh, they can.
Hey Louis, it's Darren. How are we doing tonight? I actually sit on that committee for the Bedford high-speed ferry and from the accessibility point of view and the built environment. So we are looking at all those features. That's the first comment I've heard about I'll use the word convoluted path from the Lower Water Street bus station down. But when I stop to think about it, yeah, I can see that very, very, very well. It is a twisty turny. So we can work with our friends here at TPW to institute some of the changes in our standard. We're looking at putting directional tactile indicators in the roadway as well, or in the sidewalks, not the roadway, sorry. And that should help with that traffic. But I don't believe you don't use a cane, do you? No. Okay. All right. But that's one of the big features, so that you would feel that under feet, just like you would the tactile warning plate today at the intersection. So that would help with the traversing through the area.
the directional wayfinding strips work well for a dog and for people who have low vision. It's not as obvious with the dog because if the dog is doing what they're supposed to do, which sometimes they don't, you can follow them. And for people with low vision, if the color contrast is there, then again, they act as a guiding reference.
It's good to know. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Vice Chair, question from virtual?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is from Hannah Brown. Can anything be done about scents/perfume in public spaces? I get migraines and lasting brain fog, anxiety, panic attacks, dizziness, and auras from fragrances. COVID amplified this with scented soaps, scented hand sanitizer, scented cleaners. Even supposed scent-free areas are frequently pose an issue. What kind of better enforcement or better signage could be done on this matter?
So we can only speak within HRM facilities, of course, and where we have policy, the signage package is just getting ready to go out. So I will make sure I've included a no sense policy sign that's also in Braille and tactile into that package because it's something that had not been brought to my attention. So we'll include that in the package. But enforcement, I don't know how you'd enforce that. That's a challenge, as you know, with so many other signs. So we get to a point where you have too many signs, you have sign pollution then, right? So, but yeah, I can definitely include it in the sign package. Enforcing it would be at the staff level at that location. And some of our centers, or not centers, but some of our buildings would not have personnel necessarily there 24/7 when they're open. Public washrooms, for example, in parks, do not have staff on site. So you went into the new Fort Needham Park washroom, there's not a staff member or any kind of attendant. So it would be hard to enforce it in a place like that.
Thank you.
Question from the hall, I believe, if I'm correct, we have one right here.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Schwartz. I have two questions, but I'm hoping they're quick so I can speak them both in my 3 minutes. One is with regard to the new up-and-coming sort of transit ticket / app excitingness that's happening. I'm just wondering if Accessibus is also going to have access to that program, and if you might be able to tell us maybe when. I don't know if that's classified information or not. And then my other question is sort of basic. If, as a wheelchair user in a public space, you notice a place where like the accessibility buttons either should exist and don't, or do exist and aren't working, is that something that we can contact the municipality about rather than just the building?
Yeah, so if it's within a municipal facility and you're having problems, 311 is the right call to report that, and that'll get a work order and we'll get it dealt with. Some of the buttons we had to put in because of the infrastructure, we had to go with battery operated, and the battery lasts 9 to 12 months. I think we're on a schedule to replace them every 12 months, but sometimes the battery doesn't last that long, so it might need to be replaced. So that would be helpful information for our building maintenance staff for sure to do that stuff on a regular basis. Same thing, if you've got one that you can't reach because there's an object in the way or whatever, we want to know that so we can correct it. It's no good to have it if it can't be used. So you're welcome.
Hi, Jennifer. Good to see you again. As far as the technology on the Accessibus, yes, we will receive the same technology. As to when it's going to be rolled out, I believe it's sometime in the year 2023, but we will be included in that.
Okay, virtual question.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is from Danielle Tremblay. I also wanted to bring forward that public transportation does not reach a lot of areas within the HRM. I'm on Prospect Road and we have no options past Frigate Lake. Is there a plan to expand the options? Even when I was in hospital, I had to pre-approve the cost of a taxi to have my husband and daughter come to get me and then get our car, as we could not drive.
With respect to increasing the boundaries for both Halifax Transit Conventional and Accessibus, that is something that's done through an order in council. Our current boundaries are set by council, and that's where they are today. I know from the Accessibus perspective, there's a motion before council right now by Councillor Dago Gammon to expand our boundaries, and that will be presented to council next year. And as far as the conventional buses go, it's a similar thing. It would be through council directive.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question from the floor, please. Right here in front.
Up in the
Oh, up there. Sorry, Jerry.
Can't see you, Jerry.
Hi, my name is Jerry Post, and I use a wheelchair. It's great to see all the progress that's being made. It warms my heart. I've missed part of the meetings. I was called out with some sad news, actually. Pat Gates has passed away. As many of you know, Pat, she chaired the committee for HRM for quite a few years. Was very involved with the Bill 59 Alliance that helped the province develop the legislation. As I knew her quite well, as Paul did and others in the room. So it's sad to see her pass on. But I think she'll be in a good place. To the business, a couple of things. One on the accessible taxi. Perfect. It's, I've used it, I don't know, at least a dozen times in the last couple of weeks, and it's been 5-star service. So congratulations for doing that, and thank you very much. The one thing, and it has to do with expanded boundaries of the bus service. We have this wonderful facility at Peggy's Cove now, completely accessible. It's just an incredible place. And to get to it is, if you don't have a car, is very expensive. I was asked to go out by the press, and they paid for my taxi, and it was over $300 back and forth. So who can afford that? So it would be really nice to see, at least on the weekends or during special times, regular bus service, from downtown Halifax, Dartmouth to the Peggy's Cove, not just for the residents, but also for tourists, obviously. So that's one thing. The other is, and it's a point I brought up at the last meeting that I was at here, and that has to do, again, with Accessibus and freeing up space and rides. And my suggestion was, for those that are on the Accessibus list, offer them a free bus pass for the conventional service. For each ride you deflect, you save about $40. In fact, I think you could pay them to take conventional service, and you'll be saving money. So look at that again, please. I think you'll see that it'll open up more spots for that. And the last item I have, you've probably heard a lot in the news about this vulnerable persons registry that's being advocated by various members of the disability community. And, the province is looking at it, but, ultimately, it needs to be implemented at the local regional level. They've got a very successful registry running in Annapolis Valley in the Kings County area. And I think it's something that HRM should look at and perhaps replicate that model. And that model really replicates what they've been doing in Northern Ontario, in Sault Ste. Marie. And we've been in contact with those folks, and they're willing to advise us free of charge to make it happen here as well. So those are my comments. And again, job well done. Thank you, everybody that's been active.
Great, thank you, Jerry. Madam Vice Chair, do we have one question from the virtual?
Yes, sir, we do. Celine, again, I apologize for mispronouncing the last name, Vautour. How can we ensure individuals who live with sensory processing difficulties that they can access public buildings without being affected by the sharp sounds, echoes, and the overuse of fluorescent lighting? It appears there isn't any code in place to assure applications in universal design as I personally have difficulty accessing the new YMCA on Sackville Street, and I am overwhelmed by the new entrance in the Maritime Building on Barrington Street, both in echo and brightness. We are looking at taking more care in new proposals for new developments that apply more accessibility design that could either prevent or lessen the onset of sensory overload. Should we not pressure architects to design buildings for sensory comfort over trendy aesthetics? Thank you.
For municipal facilities, we actually are doing that today. We do units. So the two buildings you talked about actually are not municipal buildings. I think one's provincial, I think the other one's nonprofit. That's considered what nonprofit? Yeah. So they're not, neither one are municipal buildings. We do have in our municipal mandate that we will follow the universal design principles, and we work with architects pretty regularly to make sure that we meet those standards. So it'd be interesting to hear if we have any feedback on municipal buildings, St. Andrews Center, Zapton Sportsplex. Those ones are the two big ones that are probably the most recent larger venues that we've done. I'd love to hear feedback on those if anybody has them, but to my understanding, we have not received any feedback on any sensory issues at any of our current centers.
Would you suggest, Aaron, that this individual may contact those individual building?
I would for sure. And again, the universal design principles are being pushed more every day. Those are getting the Rick-Hansen training. That's part of the process. And again, going back to the Accessibility Act, the Accessible by Design for 2030, that's all being looked at in the built environment piece that's coming out in the spring, is my understanding.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, it is now 7:50. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts and for your asking your questions. If you didn't get the chance to ask your question, please consider submitting it to the question and answer and writing it there. Any questions that were asked online, please be sure that it was recorded and will be sent to the relevant staff, and they will follow up by email that you provided when you registered. Thank you to our panelists. Staff, you can now join the rest of the audience. No,
there's a second part.
We have one more section, Paul.
Victoria, I could public works now.
There's still more to the.
I have another question for you. I just had a comment. Do you have a few moments? Oh, there is? Okay. I wasn't sure. Okay. Yeah, that's confusing.
I think it's. No worries.
Believe is lost control.
Yeah, when you're done. Yeah, I'll turn them off for now.
I'm up now? Okay, excellent.
But mine's a very convoluted.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. One more section left.
Could we have your attention, please? There's still more to the evening.
Yeah.
We're not letting you off that easy.
Yes, sorry about that. All right, we all need a little stretch and move anyway, so here we are. So we're now going to move on to an open floor discussion, and we invite you to share your thoughts on how we build a more accessible future. We share this space together here today, and we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to envision future town halls that will best capture the accessibility needs and concerns of HRM residents. I am joined here tonight, up here on this vista, by Tracy Jones Grant. Tracy is the manager of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion in African Nova Scotian Affairs. She will open the floor to the following questions. What are the biggest accessibility concerns facing municipal government in 2023? What should the 2023 Accessibility Town Hall look like? Is there a different structure that we could consider? Does it occur in a different space? And how would you like to be engaged? So this part of the night will be structured much the same as the question and answer. Comments will rotate between one from Paul Regan Hall and one from virtual. Please provide your name and organization for the record before you speak. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as all attendees would like the opportunity to speak. Tracy, you can begin.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. So what I wanted to do was to be able to have a conversation about what you, as members of the community, feel are the biggest accessibility concerns facing municipal government. And what I want to do is to have this conversation to help inform the work of the Accessibility Advisory Committee moving forward. But in order to do that, I'm just going to give you a bit of a preamble so that you kind of understand what the Accessibility Advisory Committee is about and what they are responsible for. Because we all live in municipalities, and it's really hard to kind of think, oh, well, that's the province, or that's the feds, or that's the municipality. But there is a bit of that divide. But I say, don't limit this conversation necessarily to that. There are things that we may hear this evening that we can't influence as a municipality. At other times, we may hear things that we can influence. So just so they understand what this wonderful committee is all about, this committee has specific roles and responsibilities with regards to the work that it does. So this committee has a role in reviewing and monitoring existing and proposed municipal bylaws. So when we talk about changes to the rules for how a city manages, this committee can provide input into that. So when we're talking about roads, streets, you know, some of the work that our great councilors do, this committee can actually provide input into that. This committee has a responsibility to identify and advise on the accessibility of existing and proposed municipal services and facilities. So, for example, tonight we mentioned the Bedford fast, the area in Bedford. Yes, the fast ferry. So this committee can provide advice and input into how that can be done in a way that is accessible and inclusive. The committee also has a role to provide advice on municipal strategies and make recommendations. The other piece that this committee has an opportunity to do is to advise our business units. So the representatives that you saw here today represented a variety of business units within the municipality, transit and parking and parks and all of those. So this committee can also advise those business units on what they could be doing to ensure that accessibility and inclusion is thought about in the work that they do. So I would like to open up the floor, and we'll take comments from the floor and from online. And I'm really interested in hearing what you as an audience feel are some of the significant or biggest things that this committee may be able to address or put into their work plan in the upcoming year. All right, we'll start from the floor.
One of the things I really wish that the municipality can work on, I don't know what provincial municipal means, so what I'm looking for is for more affordable and accessible housing, not units, just like regular apartments out, in Clayton Park everywhere, or anywhere that anybody would want, and to be able to be funded by like a provincial service, and especially like for someone like me, I just came here in September. I don't have a job. I am a university student, but because my province doesn't gave me the maximum amount for my student loan, I'm living off of $400 now for the next until January. So I was wondering if I'm not eligible for income support or anything like that, how am I going to be able to become a self-actualized person and enjoy my life in Halifax?
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is, what are we doing, or how can this committee look at the issues around affordable and accessible housing? Thank you.
Access for funding to people who need it until they're able to get out and get a job or to be able to become employed. So,
Thank you. Madam Co-Chair, anything from online?
We have nothing online right now.
Okay.
Hi again, I'm Jim McDermott. I was just recently up here speaking a little bit about some concerns for the deaf community in relation to the visual fire alarms. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about the goals for the 2030 in the future, that sort of thing. That's fantastic, but I'd really like to sort of speak about right now, things that we need right now, technology that we have right now that we could be implementing. So I'm a member of the Canadian Hearing Society. And we sell technical devices. So we're a provincial organization, and there is a provincial organization as well called the Society of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Nova Scotians that also provide technical devices. So if you are looking for those devices in order to implement any sort of policy or procedure, those things are there. So it isn't something that we need to have happen in 2030. This is something that's really emergent that we need to have happen now. So I'm not sure if you're able to work with community organizations or community partners, but if you're able to work with the Society of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Nova Scotians, those would be somebody that would be able to help you sort of with that piece. And then you'd be able to have these devices in apartments, in housings. It's quite a simple feat to have happen. I don't think it's something that we should be waiting for until 2030. I think it's kind of something that we would really like to be a priority, to be something that's happening now. So that'd be a recommendation from me to the Accessibility Advisory Committee in order to implement something now and not later.
So what I'm hearing is, when we look at the work of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, it's how is this committee perhaps influencing the municipality in the use of technical devices? We as a committee don't necessarily purchase, but maybe this is something that could be discussed as to how is the municipality ensuring that technical devices are included in our municipal buildings moving forward? So maybe that's something that could be discussed. Anything online?
No, nothing in.
This gentleman? Okay.
Hello, Sean Clark. Just a direct action idea. Just the registration for the Accessibus system currently requires a doctor's note. We have a stressed healthcare system, and if somebody has to get to a walk-in clinic to find a doctor to provide a note and can't get an Accessibus there, it creates a barrier to service. If we were able to work with, say, CNIB, Brain Injury Nova Scotia, Easter Seals, as a way to get some sort of signatory to the fact that we are disabled, it might provide ease of service for the Accessibus system.
Thank you, thank you. A response? Counselor, can you?
That's a misconception. You can have a physiotherapist, you can have an RN, you can have a physician, you can have any person that's qualified to make a diagnosis for whatever type of disability that you have. I approve the applications, and I've approved them from speech therapists, persons from the CNIB, so applications can go in with someone other than a physician.
Sure. Just to follow up to.
I had a bad experience with the booking agent for Accessibus this afternoon, and the 311 agent who I made the complaint with advised me that I would have to see the doctor, and I'd have to make my own way there. So that's why I asked that. So it might be a learning curve that need to be changed in that system.
So I think as a follow-up, we can take this forward as a question and maybe just sort of follow up to ensure that our 311 agents are providing the information that they should. Before I come, I have the gentleman here.
My name is Darrell McDonald, and I'm 53 years old, an Army veteran. I've been in the chair for 24 years, an independent licensed driver for the last 12 years. And my biggest issue is the conflict I have with people who are misusing accessible parking spots and the stripe zone that is required. My vehicle has transfer equipment on its driver's side. And I've lost count the encounters I've had with people. Oh, I'm just gonna be a minute. Oh, I'm here to pick up somebody. The municipality needs to send out public service announcements stating that these spaces have one purpose only.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And Victoria was here. And so again, this is something that we can put forward and share with Victoria. Before I go back to the floor.
Can I remind us here and online that if you're going to ask a question, we need your name for our official minutes. So before you ask, just tell us who you are, and if you represent an organization, let us know what that is, and we will make sure that the minutes reflect that information. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing
online. I believe, is there anybody, I just want to get to people who may not have asked a question yet. I have a question over here, and then I'll come to people who have had an opportunity to speak.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tracy. I live in the Valley. I remember when I was about 21, 22, and I used to go to the mall. I wouldn't be able to hear anything, of course. And I would sometimes, or actually one instance, I went to the mall and I saw all these people rushing out of the mall. And I'm like, where's everyone going? And then a lady came out of one of the stores and she grabbed a hold of my arm and she started taking me with her. And the problem was that there was a fire and there was a fire alarm and there weren't any visual cues for me. So I'm just reinforcing what Jim McDermott had already said previously, that they're really important, and those are something that we really need to have now, and it isn't something that we can really wait for. It really is something we need now, because we never know where we could be anywhere, and there could be a fire, and then we don't know that this is happening, and it can be really dangerous for us. So it is really important to have that on your agenda if at all possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And as Darren had stated, on all of the municipal buildings that we're responsible for, that is happening. And that is a standard. And I don't know if Darren has left or if he's still here. There's Darren. So we are actively ensuring that we have signaling on municipally owned buildings. Part of the concern and the frustration is there are many buildings in the municipality that we don't own. So we don't necessarily own the shopping malls. But again, for Darren, we depend on him a whole lot. He's ensuring that at least our municipal buildings are working towards being inclusive and accessible. That means nothing when we're talking about living in a private apartment or going to a shopping mall. But again, this committee has influence on municipal services. And we are really working to ensure that the things that we hear at these meetings are moved from words in a meeting to actions that we move forward. Any questions online?
Yes, and
Thank
I do
you.
apologize, I missed the pages, so we have a couple here actually. This one is from Danielle Tremblay. Top concerns: disconnected, siloed service that are very difficult to navigate, affordability of quality of life, access to transportation options, gatekeeping employment practices that only allow a select few to succeed, and lack of enforcement with employers, healthcare and treatment plans that are considered acceptable, lack of street signs, scent releasing devices in buildings, old infrastructure without ramps and elevators. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are all significant pieces that are brought forward. I just want to talk about the siloed services. Again, that is something that the Accessibility Advisory Committee can talk about, for example, is how do we ensure more connection between all of what we're doing? And part of that is this committee brings us as staff in to present, in to talk, and hopefully by continuing to do that, we'll break down some of those silos where it does make it difficult for the end user to try to figure out, do I go to parks? Do I go to parking? Do I go to transportation? So we also have quite a good 311 service. But again, these are all great ideas that you're bringing forward, and the committee will then take these and think about, okay, what does this look like as we move forward with a work plan? Could we take one more online, Jackie, please?
Sure, thank you. This is from Una Larkin. Thank you so much for hosting this town hall tonight and allowing Q&As. I would like to reinforce Jerry Post's request to reaccess a bus to Peggy's Cove, since so much money was invested into it to accommodate accessibility to the disabled population. Also, can HRM do more to highlight accessible accommodations in the hospitality industry on individual sites?
Thank you. Thank you. Again, great points. Any other questions in the room? Okay, we've got the gentleman there. And then we'll go to the gentleman up. Yep. Go ahead, Councillor Daigle-Gann.
Just going quick, parking. I remember reading it when I was first reading about the new parking system upgrade. Some neighborhoods in the HRM have a parking pass that they can get assigned for on-street parking. I was wondering if we could have a system like that for people with disabilities to be able to park downtown easier for finding parking. Just an idea.
I'm not letting anybody else hold it.
Hello, thank you very much for your question. Victoria Horn, Director of Parking Services. A great question. We can certainly look at, with council support, permitting those with disabilities to park at other locations other than designated accessible parking spaces. The only concern with that is that we cannot guarantee that all of those spaces will be fully accessible. So the purpose of the new standards for accessibility for parking spaces were to upgrade and ensure that those spaces are fully accessible. However, we do have lots of parking availability. It just depends on where you're looking for. So if there are residential areas that are void of ample accessible parking, call 311 and we will do an assessment and we can implement more in that area.
Quick follow-up. And again, we're looking for ideas for us to work on in the upcoming year.
I forgot to give my name for the record, Sean Clark. It was more for the idea of downtown. We often find that the accessible parking spaces are taken by, say, a loading truck or just someone randomly. If we have an accessible parking pass already in our vehicle, maybe we could be able to park anywhere without having to try to find a pay station and just have access to downtown a bit easier that way.
Thank you. Thank you. And there's a gentleman.
Sir, did you have another question?
I did. I'll stand. I have many questions, and being Italian, I can't even say my name in 3 minutes, so you don't know how tough this is. You asked two questions, Tracy, about the format of this forum for future years. Don't change it. I think I've lived in many other cities across the country as a person with a lifelong disability. I've often been involved, sometimes on the periphery and sometimes directly with some of the local initiatives on accessibility. And I've never had an opportunity to witness this. I think this is worth keeping. Bring the right people to the table. Be prepared for questions and answer them honestly and candidly, which I think is exactly what happened tonight. So kudos to you for that. As to what can you do next year, we're going to be stuck with construction, probably for the next generation. And I would say that one of the things that needs to be looked at seriously is when you have projects that last months, years, as we're going to have many more of in the future, the whole question of accessibility around that project is something that needs to be looked at. I know that probably the vast majority of developers do a mediocre job, but when they don't, and they leave signs and obstacles in the path of travel, or they put the hoardings up in such a way that causes someone to walk onto the road, that temporary barrier may have a permanent impact on people with disabilities. So you've got a pretty full agenda, but if I were to add one thing to it, looking at some kind of an audit, setting up an audit tool that developers could use to assess the accessibility of their project when they apply for the permits. And that tool would be something that the bylaw folks could use in following up. And if the developer or the constructor is not in compliance with their own strategies on how to mitigate barriers, accessibility barriers throughout their project, then enforcement or some type of administrative monetary penalty might be in order. So if you can manage that while we live through the crazy construction boom that's going on right now and for the foreseeable future, it would make life a little bit easier for those of us who struggle with some of those barriers.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
My name is Louis Greco. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that at the beginning.
Thank you. We have a question online and we have another one on the floor. I don't want us to run out of time.
This one is from Blau Paul. Is it possible to have a provincial liaison person at these meetings in the future?
Thank you. That's a good suggestion. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
My name is Amy Smeltzer, and I echo Mr. Greco's suggestion of an audit. I think it's fantastic. Smeltzer, Smeltzer. I was also going to suggest, make a suggestion in respect to developers and the placement of signage, and that is maybe in addition to an audit to provide some kind of education. I think that the vast majority of the calls I make to 311 have to do with signage in bike lanes and on sidewalks. I'm a mother of 3 children, aged 7 and under. We are a car-free family, so we're constantly using the sidewalks and the bike lanes with very large vehicles. And I think that there's a failure of imagination among a lot of people on the ground, contractors on the ground, when they place signage thinking, oh, a bicycle will be able to get around this sign, so it's okay to put it in the bike lane, not envisioning that some people have cargo bikes or larger bike trailers. And I think the same applies to sidewalks. People think, oh, I can place a sign on the ground because people can walk around it, and they forget about people with wheelchairs and people with strollers. So I'd like to echo the audit suggestion and add an education component to it.
Thank you for that. I believe there's another question online.
Yes, this is from Elizabeth Dool. We are stuck with municipal and provincial laws to deal with buildings to provide accessible fire alarms. I have brought up the issue a few times. Maybe we can override that and make buildings safe for everyone. And don't forget to include older people who may need accessible services. They fall into the cracks because they do not have disability issues. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Hi, Tracy. Dan O'Brien. I'm here in my capacity as the co-chair of the CNIB board. I have a very specific question and a thank you to the city. We have what a lot of people don't know is we have a service dog park called Ardmore Park in the city, which is specifically made for training for working with service dogs and people who have access. It's a closed park for service dogs. It's well used by us. I'm also a puppy raiser for CNIB, so we use it for training quite a bit. The park is often in bad shape. There are community people, I think, that sneak into the park somehow and get in there and their dogs dig holes. These holes have become real dangerous for people who are blind or visually impaired who are walking through the park or using the park for their dogs. It's typical that there are large holes in there. There's also a table, a picnic table in that park that I've recommended to be put on a pad at some point because it's been sinking into the ground for many years and it's quite low and it's actually become a dangerous object in the park. So I don't know if there's someone from parks here who would be able to do that, but if we could just have more maintenance in that park. And again, I'd like to thank the city for having this park in the first place. It's the only service dog designated park in all of Canada, and it's really important that it be maintained.
Thank you for that.
On Almond Street.
Thank you for that. And I'm not sure if anybody's still left from, just a sec, I'll just a moment, Mr. Post. I don't think anybody's still here from parks, but that is something that we can add to our list of things to bring forward. Jackie, one more question from you, and I believe Mr. Post has a question also, so.
Okay, this is from Una Larkin. For future years, there seems to be so much crossover between provincial and municipal laws and codes. Any chance of both parties getting together to save valuable resources?
I'll leave that to the councillors. That's probably more in their area of expertise and authority. But thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you.
I have a very quick comment or suggestion to solve the signage issue. It's very simple to solve. It's a policy decision by council. And that would be, they're all contractors that are doing that. There's, 4 or 5 contractors, and they also work for HRM. And the policy would be, when they found to be doing something outside of the regulation, 3 strikes and you're off the municipal procurement list for at least a year. That would solve it like that. So use your procurement policy to make that happen.
And again, we have counselors present, and so that is a point that would be addressed at a level beyond the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Before we wrap up this piece of it, I just want to get a feel from folks real quick, and if anybody has any comments. Does this type of format, this town hall, work for you? We did hear that it was a great thing, and it does bring people together. And we haven't been able to do a lot of it since we've been living with COVID. But as we move forward, we really want to hear directly from community. And one of our best resources is our annual town hall. So if anybody has any comments or questions or concerns about the town hall, we'd be more than happy to take that. And if people are happy with the town hall, we're happy with it too. And Mr. Chair, I guess we would keep moving and doing a town hall on an annual basis.
Exactly.
I love the town hall. I like being able to actually communicate and be involved. But I would request that it be a floating event so that sometimes it could be in Dartmouth, so I don't have to worry about an hour and a half bus ride.
Yes, yes. We've done it 2 years here at Central, one because we did it totally virtually, and then this year, but we have done it at it's called
Cole Harbor Place.
Darren, we did. He's not speaking into the mic, but we have done it in a variety of locations. And again, based on the direction from the committee in the upcoming year, determining the location for next year, they would set that. But we've heard many times that we need to share it around in the community, both in the urban core and in the rural communities. So that is one of the goals and objectives of where we host our town halls moving forward. It is 8:24, so, Mr. Chair, I think at this point in time, I just want to say thank you to people who have provided us with some great ideas and thoughts that will help us as we meet in the upcoming months to look at our work plan for the upcoming year. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this, Mr. Chair, and I will turn it over to you to close our evening.
Thank you, Tracy, for facilitating this discussion. We've heard you, and we will work toward rectifying and addressing some of the concerns and issues that were brought forward tonight. So I will now bring the public participation session to a close. Again, thank you all. A reminder to participants here in the hall who did not get the chance to ask a question or provide feedback, please provide them in writing over at the Q&A table. If you are online on Zoom, follow-up email will be sent to the one you provided when you registered. And before we end tonight, I want to take a minute to recognize some of our special guests. We have Councillor Deagle Gammon, who so wonderfully helped with our mic running tonight. Thank you, Councillor. We have Councillor Chris Purdy from District 4 joining us tonight. Thank you, Councillor. And the Honorable Steve Craig, Minister of Fisheries and Agriculture, joined us tonight. Thank you, sir. And as always, and pleasantly, we have Jerry Post. Jerry Post is the former chair of the Accessibility Directorate and of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, the place that I now hold. Thank you, Jerry. Okay. Thank you to all of our business representatives tonight, all of our units who joined us, to join us with updates and provide responses to questions and comments. Thank you to our staff and volunteers who worked to make tonight's event possible. I must name Annie, Annie has been wonderful. Annie is the legislative assistant for our committee, so essentially my tool for success is listen to Annie, do what Annie tells you. It's always the best option. Thank you to all of our ASL and deaf interpreters, to our cart captioning staff, and of course to the people here at Halifax Central Library for partnering with us. Thank you to everyone who asked questions, shared your thoughts with us. Your concerns have been heard, and the staff will continue to work on the issues you raised. The committee will continue to incorporate your feedback into our work plan for the year ahead. The minutes from this town hall will be discussed at next month's advisory committee meeting, and the feedback received will be incorporated into a report for our executive standing committee. So with all that said, I would like to close the meeting and adjourn at 8:30 p.m. Thank you all for attending. Have a good night.